And good afternoon. Welcome into Market Talk for Thursday, November 5th, 2020. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Great to have you here with us on the program today. It's brought to you by our friends at BOA Coolers. And let me tell you about these guys. BOA Coolers, fantastic stuff. You think about those heavy, bulky coolers that we've been living with for years. They get in the way. You never know where to store them. I'll tell you what, BOA Coolers, they're changing the cooler game. It's like a gym bag, all right? It's very lightweight, very easy to carry, easy to store, different colors. You can take them with you anywhere, kayaking, if you're hiking, golfing, whatever the case may be. For our farmers out in the combine, in the tractor, during harvest season, as we're wrapping that up during planting, whatever the case is. On the go, you need a BOA cooler. I mentioned four great colors. They all look amazing. I got the lime green one. I got two of them, actually. These things are fantastic. Order yours today, boacoolers.com. That's BOA, B-O-A coolers.com. BOAcoolers.com. Tell them Jesse at Market Talk sent you, and get yourself a BOA cooler today. My guest on the program, good friend of mine from Total Farm Marketing by Stewart-Peterson, John Heinberg, is with us today here on Market Talk. John, how are you?
Doing great, Jesse. Doing great.
Appreciate you joining us today, John. Let's jump right into things. Soybeans, the story again today amid all this uncertainty in the political world and everything else, but another great day in soybeans. And as you and I were discussing before we jumped on live, some interesting soybean oil sales today. Do you want to start there? Let's talk about that.
We know that's a market that's been really pushed by the demand side of the equation. And obviously, we got products, soybean meal, soybean oil that do come out of there. One of the sales that came out today on the overnight, or one of those flash sales, as we call it, was a 33,000 metric ton sale of oil to India this morning. That was very uncommon. In fact, just to give you an idea, last week we sold 6,000 metric tons total. So, here we are 5 times that amount in one sale. That's a little bit reflective of what may be going on in the world edible oil markets. Palm oil prices are pushing the highs for the year, and if they take those out, that'll be their highest prices since 2014. We got a lot of governments and countries looking to stock up on those supplies. Everybody kind of got caught on the backside of things when COVID happened internationally. And soybean oil is a substitute that can come in there and replace those higher palm oil prices. So with that, we saw a big jump in oil prices today, up over $1 on the December contract, 80-90 cents on the January. That helped give some gas to a soybean oil market a soybean market that was already on the roll higher after yesterday's strong move.
Yeah, and looking at this soybean market itself today, we're breaking over that $11 mark on the futures in November. January contracts, March is right there, 10.98 at the close, up 18 and a quarter. Looking at the soybean market and looking at marketing options, you mentioned the last couple of days, seems like there is a lot of room for opportunity in soybeans, John.
Yeah, there is. And the crossing through the $11 barrier is really big psychologically today. I mean, it's another step on the climb higher, but you get through those big dollar windows, not $10, now 11. It just seems to bring some optimism, probably bring some more speculative money into the market. Thing that was really encouraging was actually the trade on Wednesday when we came back through and took out last week's highs. We had some pretty negative closes last week on the bean market and the corn market, so it was really encouraging to see the prices not take those highs up, but literally blow right through them. So that brought some more money flow into the market as well. Saw those weekly export sales. They were strong again. China, another 800,000 metric tons of beans on the books last week, moving some over from unknown destinations to under their flag. So those things are continuing to be strong. And now we got a USDA report next week. Expectations for production and yield to probably soften up some more and tighten up that carryout. And we're getting to windows now. Now we're at 11. Typically, we can see that push to 12. Not saying it's going to happen here in the near term, but the momentum's there that this market still has some legs in it as long as the news stays friendly.
Yeah, and news cycle, John, election obviously right now, but it seems like the market is basically digesting this election and saying, well, we don't know anything. We're just going to kind of keep on running up higher. What's your thoughts on how much election politics, not just presidential, but, with Congress, how much that is playing into this market right now?
That was an event that was, kind of figured in last week. And that's why we saw the pullback, just the caution in the market in general. You saw the stock market have one of its worst weeks ever last week. And then that also carried over into the grains, and even make, the cattle market seem cautious last week. So we kind of got that event behind us, even though we still don't really have an answer where we are, but at least the event is behind us. And things are moving forward. Markets are looking towards where we at now in the fundamentals, where we're at in the technicals, what's going on in the money flow. It's Fed Chair Powell was just on again this afternoon, left interest rates unchanged. He's still very, very friendly in his tone in terms of saying we need to provide stimulus into the economy where we need to. That is an inflationary device, which we saw the US dollar really push lower today. So that carries over into the commodity space. And at the same time, if we got an inflationary environment, that adds value to commodities as well. So that's something to still keep an eye on. The fundamentals may not change a whole lot, but if we just got money flow and reasons for money to be buying into the commodity sector, that's just going to bring value to the price. Think back in the 80s in terms of how things would move around when we were dealing with much different types of inflation than we're seeing now.
Yeah, great thoughts there, John. Let's go to this corn market. I know March matching its high today, July corn, new contract highs there. We've pushed over this $4 mark here on the futures trade. Again, another decent day today, up 3 to 4 cents across the board, it looked like for the most part. Talk to me about corn. What opportunities are out there right now?
Corn market right at this moment, a little bit cautious with the way things acted today. Again, we talked about those strong reversals last week, and we really need to get back through those last week's highs. And March getting there and failing today puts a nice double top on the chart, as we like to call it. So kind of like to see a little more strength there. December still got some work to do to even get those levels. It was encouraging to see the May, July, September contracts did break through those recent barriers and take out those turns from last week. Early this morning, it was an explosive wheat market. We're trading 15 to 20 higher on wheat. That gave corn its real gas on the overnight. Saw that fade during the course of the day, but we held in there, and that was still encouraging that, hey, we're still working ourselves higher. Export numbers were strong for corn this morning. 2.6 million metric tons of corn sales. Again, a lot of them were unknown, and they kind of keep buying in small amounts, and they sneak them under the market a little bit, and then we get the weekly totals, and everybody's like, well, where'd that come from? We knew 1 million of it was coming from Mexico, but then the other side was pretty encouraging to see. China was in there picking up another 200,000 tons again last week. So, that demand side's stays supportive. Now we got to figure out where the supply side is. I think the market's starting to produce carryouts of 1.6, 1.7 possibly on the report next week. We'll see if we can get there, and that's what we're probably pricing in at this window. As I've been saying to producers, though, keep an eye on this 420 level. We can't get back through last week's highs. We got a topping signal in that chart right now. And if that carryout number stays heavy, we might be in a window here where, we've fairly priced for now. So we'll have to watch that. So what I've been telling producers, again, we got good prices at this moment in terms of overall. Sell the fact. Keep an eye on the cash market. Take care of your pocketbook, come back and buy the potential. Look at those call strategies longer term, just in case this market decides to run higher. This 420 level is a big area. If we can get through it on the weekly level, that usually opens the door to 450. If we don't get through it, it may open the door back to 380 if the supply side stays heavy.
Yeah, great insight there, John, as always. Let's talk wheat. I know you mentioned it a little bit, and continuing to kind of see a weather market here in wheat, been up a little bit today. Where things stand with the wheat markets right now?
Wheat markets right now, again, it was all about demand this morning. We had tenders from Saudi Arabia as well as Egypt looking for importable wheat this morning. Egypt tender got filled a little bit less than last time, and that's some of the reason we saw the wheat market also give up its gains very quickly. The last 3 or 4 times they put a tender out there, prices continue to climb, so seeing some softness in the global price is a bit on the scared the market a little bit. Now we'll see how things kind of play out from there, but the demand has stayed strong overall. We've got some international issues. China's looking to ban Australian wheat imports, so that could open up some more market maybe for U.S. wheat. We'll see how that goes. More than likely, that'll come out of the French market or the Ukraine. But we'll see how that plays out. Now the weather side of the equation, you still continue to watch Argentina. We're still watching Russia, see what's going on there. Watching the Southern Plains, and seeing how things come together there. It's a time of year where we're looking to get those next rounds of wheat supplies put together, and if things are short, given the demand that's in this market, they could come in here and be supportive of price overall. We've been holding above the $6 level now here for quite a while, and that's very encouraging in my mind, staying above that target. It's like holding above the $4 level in corn, and it just continues to give the market a little bit of upside if we get the news to push it there.
John, let's switch over to livestock. Cattle markets, for the most part, were higher again today. We saw a little bit of activity in the countryside. Still, it just seems tough to get a bid out there in cattle country right now. But I know some optimism in this cattle market. Where did you see things as we kind of wrapped up today?
Seasonality wise, this is a window we usually see a little bit more strength start coming into that market. Money flow typically comes in now into the end of the year. Very encouraged by what I've seen this week. I know cash prices aren't where we want them, but we are higher. We were 106 last week. Now we're seeing early 107. There's a lot of whisper of 109, 110 maybe being done in some of the formula pricing. We'll see what happens over the next couple of days. Right now, the feedlot's starting to get a little resolve here. Retail value has been moving firmer. We've had good choice box movement here, so that's adding some value. Now we can see if we can get the packer to pay up a little bit more as the market's been working higher here. So we'll keep an eye on that. Encouraging. We talk about exports today. Big shipment number today. 21,400 metric tons of beef went out last week. That's a market year high. And, when we're still kind of piling through this, the supply side of the equation here, it's good to see that product moving, and sales about 20,000 a week, as well as China picking up another couple thousand tons. Just seems to help. I mean, they're typically not in that market, and they've been in there for a little bit overall. So those things are friendly, and they got me encouraged. The biggest thing I'm really keeping an eye on, though, what's going on with the COVID situation, what's happening with lockdowns here in the United States as well as internationally. We're losing some restaurant trade as it gets colder, but on the flip side, you go look at the grocery store numbers, and we're buying retail beef for homes, and that's absorbing a big portion of that. So with that, I like the cattle market here. Nice little push today. Need that confirmation, I think, on that cash market to work higher to really get this market moving. But at least we're building a nice little upward base here over the last couple of weeks after that hard sell-off here just a couple weeks back.
On the hog side, John, I know some of the same factors with cattle as far as watching COVID and things like that. Exports today, it seemed like the market was maybe looking for a little bit of a bigger number, at least from China. Didn't necessarily see as strong of a movement as I think some folks were hoping for, but nonetheless, hogs higher today, pushing near that $70 mark. What are you seeing in hogs right now? I know we've talked about this a little bit. Nice to see this kind of strength here late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, hog market kind of peaked out. December got well above that 70 level, then dropped back pretty quickly. We saw some demand really start slipping. Carcasses were around the $100 level, and they dropped down into the mid 80s in about a week and a half span. As we saw even the export market kind of dry up a little bit. We were usually putting 40,000 tons a week out. We're down in the 20,000. China was picking up 8 to 10,000. They were picking up 2,000. That had the market a little bit on the defensive. Saw some of that reverse a little bit today, though. It was encouraging to see 42,000 tons on the sale front today. China did come back in and pick up 10,000 for the delivery by the end of the year. So that's the thing I think the market reacted to the most today. Then it got a little shot in the arm when the retail values came out. We were up $8 on hog carcasses this morning. Good strength in that ham and that belly cut. Again, those are those exportable cuts. So we'll see if that can hold into the end of the day. But that's kind of what got this turnaround going. Prices have been holding on here the last couple of days and consolidating. So it's nice to see a little bit of a breakout and maybe a little bit of a confirmation. Now, the biggest thing is it's going to be a dead cat bounce. The supplies are still heavy. So we'll have to kind of watch it the next few days. I'm going to treat it fairly cautious. We still kill about 490,000 hogs a day. That's a lot of pigs. China hog herd is coming back. So what's that put us into the spring and summer months if that demand does not stay in the market? So if you got good value out there, you need to find a way to use strategies to protect the floor but keep the top side open.
John, I had a question from a producer. I kind of wanted to run by you as well. I know you mentioned at the beginning here last week, a very rough week for the stock market. Stock market's been trading mostly higher so far this week. We know that obviously stocks can play into many different things and factor into everything from commodity markets to you name it. Looking at the stock market and how kind of a two-part question, how it's playing into the commodity markets right now. Where do things kind of stand right there?
Well, first off, we've had a bit of a risk-on mentality since we've gotten through the voting process. I'm not going to say the election because, again, not quite elected yet. But I think the market's looking at it from two different standpoints. First off, at least at this point, doesn't look like we had the blue wave, so that keeps the checks and balances in terms of the government in place and policy. If President Trump gets reelected, the stock market's obviously going to love that from the pro-business mentality. I mean, in this 4 years, we've seen the S&P go up almost 60%. So obviously that's keeping some optimism in the market. If we go the other route with President Biden or becoming elected, now you're looking at stimulus. You're looking at money probably moving into the market that way, which the market also likes. And from the sugar high, and Fed Chairman Powell said nothing today to damper that enthusiasm whatsoever. So we kind of got past the event of the election day, and now the markets are sitting back going, either which way we go here, it's going to be all right. And we're seeing that money flow in. Typically October is not the best month for the markets, and then we get our bit of our November, December kind of Christmas rally, and then be careful going into the end of the year. So we'll have to see how that plays out. That's brought that same mentality over into the rest of the market space. We've seen good strength now since the election's gotten over, so more of a risk-on mentality as money is moving into the markets in general. So that's something we got to keep an eye on. And with that, keep talking about currencies. The U.S. dollar had a weak day today. Is it ready to make the next leg down? And that's also going to help that commodity space.
John, any other final thoughts here on today's program you want to throw out there, or any thoughts for marketing advice as we look at this entire market in a whole?
Getting back to producers, and it's definitely in all these markets. Right now there's going to be a lot of volatility. Get used to those days where all of a sudden, boom, we're down 10 cents. But the market stays active, we'll have opportunities to probably gain those things back. Biggest thing is producers need to focus on the cash, whether it's in the bushels, or the cattle on the hoof. Take a look at opportunities in that regard and look at those strategies, and then find a way to come back and keep things open. Biggest thing for grains right now, I've been talking a lot about 2021. We're pushing $4 corn, $10 beans today out there. I know everybody wants to hit home runs and see where we're at, but someplace you got to start. And if we're starting at these levels, or if the market moves a little higher and we get our first sales in, let's hope they're our worst, but still a good floor for the future. So producers need to focus on that cash, come back and re-own the potential that this market does have in the long run.
Sometimes a double is just as good. It's better than a strikeout, right?
Yeah, after the last handful of years, I'll take a few base hits once in a while here, because it's been difficult for producers to find really good opportunities.
And I think we can all agree that there is opportunity out there, so we'll definitely have to watch it. Producers, if they want to reach out to you, John, and get some advice, get some marketing advice, have you be that coach in the dugout, so to speak, how can they do that, John?
Love to chat with them anytime. Feel free to call the office, 800-334-9779. Or go ahead and just shoot me an email at johnh@totalfarmmarketing.com. Gladly chat with them about the markets overall. If you're just looking for general market information too, check out our website, www.totalfarmmarketing.com.
John, appreciate the time as always. I know we'll talk to you next week, and hopefully by then we know who our president is, or at least have a better idea. John, appreciate the time as always, my friend. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jesse. Look forward to talking to you next week.
John Heinberg with Total Farm Marketing joining us here today on Market Talk. Coming up tomorrow, Matt Bennett with agmarket.net will be our guest, and you can join us as we wrap up the week here, the first full week of Market Talk. Learn more, markettalkag.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find us on your favorite podcast sources, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, iHeartRadio, radio.com, and more. This has been the Thursday, November 5th, 2020 edition of Market Talk. I'm your host, Jesse Allen. Have a great afternoon.